What's going on, everybody? I'm back with another video. This video is going to be looking at how Southampton won a point against Tottenham even after they got a red card and went down to 10 men. So before we get into the tactics on how they saw a 1-1 draw, check out both my books. They're online on Amazon and there's links in the description below. Also check out Keyframe. There's a link to that in the description as well. That's how I made this video. Now when we look at the tactical setup of Southampton, they went with a back three to start off the match, and their tactics in possession, out of possession were really impressive for most of the match. They went with a double pivot of Diallo and Ward-Prowse, which saw Ward-Prowse play a little bit deeper, allowing Diallo more freedom. Now with this 3-2 build-up, it gave them good stability to then protect against a dangerous Tottenham transition in their offensive phase. So the big piece here was Salisu looking to progress the ball through the half space on this left-hand side. And this was a major tactical change throughout the match because this was the player that got the red card. So when they went with a back line of 3 players in their initial build-up to then changing to 2 central defenders, this role in the half space completely changed because it disappeared, forcing them to occupy this space more dynamically, and it had implications on getting the ball further forward between the lines. Southampton also occupied key roles between the lines with 2 forwards, an asymmetric midfield 3, and versatile wingbacks. So Southampton always had very good pinning of Tottenham's back 5 and looked to exploit the spaces between the lines through the half space, as we've just highlighted here. For Tottenham, they started the game in an asymmetric 5-3-2, seeing Dele Alli being the player to jump more often than not, with then Son and Harry Kane in the first line of pressure, looking to then control the double pivot of Southampton and apply pressure to the left-hand side of Southampton's build-up, so which then created the potential to create a route progression for Southampton through this left-hand side because of the jumping of Dele Alli, created more space and less vertical compactness on this left-hand half space. Now we see Son dropping deeper and Dele Alli jumping to then go and press with Harry Kane as our lone forward, making the setup now look more like a 5-4-1. But we get a really good picture here of the occupation of the front line of Southampton against the back line of Tottenham. So we have 3 players in the central corridor, all looking to pin central defenders and narrow the back 5. Then we have good width created through our wingbacks just off our screen here on the top and at the bottom left. So our wingbacks create the width and allow good versatility in the build-up. Also, Southampton played very brave in their build-up with their double pivot, controlling the central areas, but they also spread their central defenders very wide, spanning from half space to half space on the exterior part. This is a brave trend from Southampton because of the potential Tottenham have in transition when they win the ball. It creates more space between central defenders and puts a lot of stress on the holding midfielders to fill this space and control the build-up with good connections to then improve circulation and to create security if possession were to be lost. As we said, Salisu would be the player to progress the ball on the left-hand side via dribbling, and he would progress the ball through wingbacks, overloads, and pinning players in higher areas. So we have players running in behind from our central forwards. Then we have Diallo jumping as a holding midfielder to occupy a higher space, our wingbacks creating full width, and James Ward-Prowse as a deeper connection to create stability. So in the mutual help space for Southampton, we have a lot of strong connections around the ball, which gave them a lot of stability in their transition phases. So by having a tight mutual help space with a lot of options numerically, it gives them easier time to transition while overloading the weak side half space, allowing then these players to occupy dangerous position when the ball is progressed against the teams. And by overloading the weak side in the half space, these players operate in the blind spot of the Tottenham back 5 and holding midfielders in the low block, giving them positional superiority to move in the blind spot undetected. Then now we see the front 3 from Tottenham stepping up with Dele Alli jumping out of the midfield to press the central defender, creating this space in the half space, which then can be exploited or exaggerated by runs in behind and then players checking to the ball to then try and get the attack to be finished by these overloaded players on the weak side. When Southampton went down to 10 men, they then lost this left-sided build-up, which was really important and crucial on how they dominated the first half. So what would then try to happen is this would then be occupied by a more dynamic approach. So whether it be a wingback dropping deeper or a central midfielder dropping deeper, these are ways Southampton could use this space, but use it in a dynamic way. This wasn't as effective though, because the big impact the left-hand side had was due to the fact that this player was able to drive the ball forward from a deeper position, where these players would have to move back from a higher position, go deeper, so their momentum would already be taking them back towards their own goal, which made it easier for Tottenham to defend again. However, we still see the connections Southampton try to connect through a four-man midfield and a single forward in the central corridor, trying to create diagonal passing options into the half spaces against the Tottenham 5-3-2. Now for Tottenham's build-up in the first phase, especially in the first half, they look to create a right-sided overload and vacate the left side to then look to progress higher up the field. We have the double pivot of Højbjerg just off our screen here, and Harry Winks as the two central midfielders against the 5-2-3 of Southampton. So we just see the asymmetric connections due to the asymmetric build-up of Tottenham, with then the two holding midfielders supporting the front three just off our screen in a little deeper area. An interesting build-up trend from Tottenham, which was almost similar to how Atalanta might build up, with their holding midfielder dropping between three central defenders. So Højbjerg now dropping between the most central defender, Eric Dyer, and the left-sided central defender, forcing the left-sided central defender to move into the wider area, which then pulls the connection of Southampton very wide, as we see here, from our front three, and forces the double pivot to then move and adjust for this. And what this does is it creates more space in behind and forces then a Southampton third central defender to make a decision, with the holding midfielder jumping. Space between the lines increases, allowing for space for a player to drop, which then forces the central defender to make a decision whether he follows to maintain this vertical compactness. But this would then increase the space in behind, so it puts Southampton in a very dangerous position, which they dealt with very well, with adequate pressure on the ball to make these passing lanes into this dangerous space not available. When Southampton went a man down in their defensive phase, especially in their low block, we saw them start with a makeshift back four, loosely going into a back five, whether it be a 5-3-1 or a 4-4-1. And this was determined by the left-sided midfielder and how deep he started his positioning. So as we see Davinson Sanchez occupying the wide area, as we see the Tottenham player occupying the wide area, the player on Southampton is between two positions, whether he presses Eric Dyer or he stays and drops into the back five. Tottenham's build-up didn't change very much, still having Harry Kane, Son, and Dele Alli, who then became Lucas Moura. A little time after a sub was made for Lucas Moura to take off Dele Alli, these three players occupied the space between the lines, whereas the build-up remained more or less the same, and often saw these players moving into wider areas and overlapping positions, rather than players in central areas and more advanced spaces moving to new roles, trying to pull out dangerous defenders, where the movement from Tottenham came from the base of their build-up into wide areas, which was much easier for Southampton to deal with. So now our last picture for Southampton is looking at their structure in a back five, with this left-sided midfielder dropping deeper within the back three to then become a wing back on the left-hand side. We then see our near side wing back jumping to press Doherty and creating a 5-3-1, so seeing a lot of emphasis on the midfield shifting to jump to a line of confrontation to allow them to maintain compactness, but allow for adequate pressure when the ball reaches a certain area. And here we can start to see Tottenham's build-up and how they can move from wide areas. So we have our double pivot and Davinson Sanchez already moving into a wider area. So when these players make inverted runs, he then can be the player occupying the wider area and allow a central midfielder get on the ball on the weak side and maintain this back three build-up with then a single pivot. But with Kane and Son working off each other, with Kane pinning and Son dropping deeper, They maintained a lot of their build-up trends throughout the match, as we've seen Tottenham in the past do so. But the game ultimately ended 1-1, which was deserving of Southampton's good tactical performance throughout the match. And I hope you guys liked the video, and I'll see you in the next one.